Preparedness Minister Bill Blair oversees the federal response. He's with us live now from the House of Commons. Hi, Minister Blair. Good to have you with us. Thank you very much for making the time.
Of course, Vassy. Good to be here.
I just got the readout from the call that the Premier and the Prime Minister had together today about the situation in Alberta, and I wanted to ask you about one statement in particular. The Prime Minister noted that work is underway to determine how the government can best accommodate the supports identified by Alberta in its draft request for assistance. What has Alberta asked the federal government for?
Well, a number of asks that they've including, and you've already mentioned this, that there's a need for additional firefighters. We have a national organization, CIFC, which coordinates the movement of firefighters between the provinces and, if it's necessary, internationally from the United States, from Mexico, and from Australia. And one of the things that Alberta has identified is the need for more firefighters. They have over 100 fires that are currently burning there, and although the weather conditions improve somewhat today, they're looking at hot, dry, windy weather as the week progresses, and so there's a real concern that the people that have been out there doing an extraordinary job, those firefighters have been working tirelessly right through the weekend, they're getting tired, and we've got to make sure that there's help for them. We also have talked to them about, the need for assistance in evacuations, and so with Canadian Armed Forces doing strategic airlifts and perhaps also bringing to bear some of their heavy equipment. There's a need for additional police resources. There are some rules that the province was concerned about with respect to Transport Canada. We've been working with the province, and I've been in regular contact with Mike Ellis, my counterpart in the Alberta government. We've been working right through the entire weekend. Our people are well stitched up with the Alberta government in determining what they need. We've been mobilizing those resources. There's a particular concern as well, Vassy, that I should mention, in that the impact in Indigenous First Nations communities has been quite significant. Some of the largest evacuations are from Fox Lake and Sturgeon Lake areas and reserves, and so Indigenous Services Canada also has a responsibility there and is working really well with the province and with the leadership in those First Nations to provide the support and services that people need. And so we've now got the letter from Alberta, and there's some additional work as well, because we know some people who have been displaced, nearly 30,000 of them at this point, are in need of some types of supports, and we're working with the province of Alberta and with Canadian Red Cross to make sure that those supports and funding where required is going to be available when and where people need it.
So let me sort of parse apart that answer for a moment. I'll ask you about the funding that's available in a moment. Just on the mobilization of resources, I think I heard you say there everything from police to extra firefighters to the military. How soon can the military be in Alberta?
Now, the military has been at the table with our Government Operations Centre and the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. They're well aware of what's being requested of them. I've just spoken to Minister Anand, the Minister of Defence, and she assures me that the Canadian Armed Forces will be there and be there as quickly as possible. The Canadian Armed Forces answers the call every time we ask, and clearly the people of Alberta need additional help, and we always rely on the extraordinary capabilities and commitment of the Canadian Armed Forces. We also know, for example, that we may have to bring some police officers from other provinces. There's actually a procedure for that. It's a Section 9 request. I've already spoken to the Public Safety Minister. We'll action that as quickly as possible. We'll do what is necessary to help the people of Alberta and to support the provincial government and all of their officials in this response.
You mentioned the timeline there heading into the weekend, and I spoke to someone with Alberta Wildfire on my radio program today who mentioned, hey, look, they had a few days where the weather was cooperating, and they're very worried now heading into the weekend with what that forecast looked like, and as you mentioned, how much worse that could make the situation. When you talk about mobilizing extra police or firefighters or the military, do you expect or anticipate that those resources will be in Alberta prior to the weekend, when things really, as you mentioned and as she mentioned, are kind of very extra worrisome, I should say?
Yeah, and Vassy, first of all, we've already been mobilizing those resources. We have actually firefighters that have arrived in Alberta today and have been on the ground and are doing the important work side by side with their colleagues from Alberta, from Ontario, from Quebec. We're also communicating with other provinces, and based on the request, Alberta and the need that they've identified, we'll also be reaching out to some of our international partners. It's all hands on deck in a situation like this, and we know we're going to have to move fast to keep people safe and to protect communities, infrastructure, and most importantly, to be there for the Albertans that are being really significantly impacted by this event.
And speaking of those Albertans who have been impacted, many of them, have been impacted because they've had to flee their homes, but others are not even sure yet if their homes are still there, right? There's the potential damage for that. I remember covering the fires in Fort McMurray, the floods in 2013 in southern Alberta. And you know this probably as well as anyone, the hardest part for people who suffer that kind of damage and impact is often being able to get money that they need in order to fix that loss or to help aid them through that loss in time. What has changed in the way the federal government works, if anything, to counter that?
Now, one of the things that we've developed, and we work in partnership with the Canadian Red Cross and with our provincial partners, Canadians generously make donations to the Canadian Red Cross. We, in many cases, match those funds with federal dollars and provincial dollars, and we design a program working with the province in order to provide people in the immediate circumstances and difficulties that they find themselves with the resources that they need for shelter, for food, to deal with some of the disruptions that they're experiencing. But in addition to that, we also know that people who've been displaced from their homes, there are communities now, for example, that where many of the residential buildings and commercial buildings in the area have been burnt out. In one town, the RCMP detachment has also been destroyed. We know that when those fires are out and those people need to move back to those communities, we're going to have to be there quickly with them and for them in order to help them restore their homes and their community. We work very closely, and I am responsible in our government for the administration of the Disaster Financial Assistance Arrangement, and those are circumstances for eligible expenses. The federal government will pay up to 90% of the cost of those recoveries. Now, the province will gather information. They actually design and implement the program. We work very closely with them, and in the past few years, we have found we need to move those monies quickly. So we've been working. We did it in British Columbia for the floods that they experienced in 2021. We've also been working really closely with the maritime provinces for Hurricane Fiona. We've learned the importance of moving quickly and working very closely and collaboratively with the provinces to get money to those communities. It still takes time, and so we have systems of support, financial support, to help people bridge through the transition, and then we will also be there for them with the province, with the money that they're going to need to recover from the damage from these events.
And Minister, that provincial update from the Premier is just about to get started, I believe, any moment. Or just got underway. I just really quickly want to ask you, because you did serve as Public Safety Minister. I know it's not your purview right now, but back in 2021, when that CSIS intelligence showed Michael Chong was being targeted and his family, I wanted to ask you about your government's decision to expel the Chinese diplomat. Why did it take a week to make that decision?
Well, first of all, the decision to expelling a diplomat is an extraordinary measure that is taken very seriously by our government. It follows, there's a very strict legal process, a rule of law, and also a strict evaluation of the evidence, its credibility and substance. And so that work it's important that work proceed, but it be done carefully. I also want to be very clear, I did not see any of that information or intelligence just until this past week when it was reported in the newspapers. No one in my government in a decision-making position actually had direct access to that information, and so they've been working with that since that time. And the Global Affairs Minister made a decision in her announcement today.
Okay, Minister, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. I do appreciate it. That's Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair. A little later this program, we're going to talk to Foreign Affairs